But can you go back to the mask thing for a second? Right.
Yeah.
And how that was a thing. And I didn't appreciate some of the shit I saw kind of coming over there. I was like, do we really need to go there with this? I understand if you have your convictions, but to call other people out and disparage them for wanting to go regardless. But so I think that's another concept. But what was the reality?
Let's talk about this for a second. First of all, the size of my business right now, I'm super happy with where I'm going, and it's constantly growing in a healthy manner. So I have no complaints. But with that being said, I'm not massive enough to book, meetings with somebody like Surefire. I'm just not, and people saying this shit are. Right. So this is very valuable to me because right now, Train with Purpose pays my bills. Right. So I need to be there and as like a business person, not just somebody that's there to party. Right. I know I don't drink, but I did partake in the parties and I left early. You know what I mean? Because I knew I had a big day the next day. So with the mask thing, people saying shit like that, I think it's kind of funny. People we know, people we don't know that are massive. Across the board, I almost feel like people were scared to go because they were almost feeling like they were going to get shunned.
Ostracized?
Yeah, like if they went. And what's funny about that...
It's not funny.
Yeah, not that. But what's funny about the idea that all that transpired over the internet is I felt kind of guilty, but there was like no way I was not going to go as a business. But I tell you what, when I got there, I seen any gun influencer or personality you can think of there. So I wasn't alone, right? Whether it's for the parties or for the business, I wasn't alone. Name anybody that's an influencer in the gun world, anybody that has more than a couple thousand followers. You know what I mean? I seen them. So it wasn't just me. So all these people shitting on people that do this, dude, you're like one of 3 people that really have the power to say that, right? Now, with that being said, I did notice a trend that was really weird to me, and this could just be me thinking, on my own and just, reaching and putting things together. But it seems as though anybody who was tied to a certain firearms company who like was very vocal about not going because of the mask thing, it almost seems like anybody who is tied to them in terms of this is the firearm they use, whether it's sponsorship or anything like that.
They didn't go.
So and that's too bad to me because this is some of my favorite, most influential people in my life.
Yeah, let's break that down a second. So let's say you are a company that provides maybe a service, like maybe firearms instruction, right? And you are representing whether you're saying you are, you aren't, but you only use this brand of firearms.
Yeah.
And that brand of firearms, and so that's a big piece of your company, right? Like it's a big piece of your brand, and they're maybe they're supplying you with equipment. That's expensive equipment. There's value in that. There's relationships built there, and again, these are the same massive companies that can afford not to be there and have influence. What you're saying is those companies influenced those people not to be there. Is that what I hear you suggesting?
I'm suggesting in my head. No one told me this. This is from me walking around for a couple of days there and being like, that's really interesting that this firearms brand was very vocal about not going because freedom and masks. And then it seems as though there was like a handful of people that I was like super excited to like get FaceTime with that runs that company's firearm that wasn't there. And no one told me this. I feel like to me that looks pretty clear cut that they didn't show up when SHOT Show's the biggest firearms community show in the world.
I want to kind of compare and contrast this whole mask thing because like anything else, you can try and make everything black and white. And the reality of it is it's not.
Yeah.
There's nuance to stuff. And you just mentioned that, and that is your situation, right? Your particular situation, this would be the same if you were in some kind of an altercation. There's situational awareness, or there's a situation that you're going to have to now evaluate, assess, and then take action to based on what's happening right in front of you or what your particular situation is. So how you handle that could be very, very different than the other person, right? And how they handle that. We're talking about business right now. We're talking about business. And now, so we're talking about the mask thing, and we're basically what was kind of going across the airwaves there was, if you go to this thing, you're not a patriot.
Yeah. That's pretty much what they're saying.
Because Las Vegas, as a city within the state of Nevada, has a mask mandate within the hotels, right? I would bet if you went and talked to those casino owners, to those hotel owners, they would just, if they could, they would they don't want people wearing masks. They recognize that's not good for their business.
Yeah, it's not comfortable, right?
So they don't want that, but they can't operate otherwise.
Yeah.
Right. They can't, not right now. So they're making compromises. Right. And again, compromising to be inconvenienced so that you can better yourself and get to the next level for a little while without making a big deal about it. And when I say that, that's just not being public about it. I'm not saying you don't feel strongly or have strong convictions about it, because I can relate this to the fitness industry. The way we've been handled here in this county, right, as compared to a neighboring county, which I can almost hit a rock or throw a rock and hit from here, has been completely different. I've been harassed. I've been fined. I've had notices posted on my door for some shit I didn't do. Yeah. Right. And so for you to say, well, you know, if people are in there wearing masks, then I'm not telling anybody wear a mask. They're wearing a mask. If they want to wear a mask, it's their fucking choice to wear a mask. Yep. So don't tell me that because they're wearing a mask, I'm somehow, not a patriot, or this person isn't a patriot. That's as good as, well, I'll come back to that analogy later. I just think it's really poor play. Like, we're supposed to be coming together, and part of being an American is making your choices. Yeah. Right. And you shitting on somebody for making a choice to be there just because you don't like it doesn't mean they're not a patriot. I have a big problem with that too, man. I really do. But again, what's the reality of that? I mean, what did it look like when you got there?
So, okay. Two things that I'm going to say from that. One, I'm really disappointed that company and all the people who rock, or not all the people, but the big names that rock their stuff, I'm really disappointed they didn't go, because, man, I'm a huge fan, right? Okay, so there's that. And the second thing is, this is a firearms event. So what do you think happened when every single door in the hotel, every single room had two people telling you, please put your mask on, you need to have a mask on, this, and that? What do you think happened?
Yeah, I'm sure probably people were pretty resistant to it.
Yeah. It's called, they got middle fingers. I actually was seeing people say, yeah, fuck off. Now, I'm not saying, you got to tell people that are wearing that. You don't have to tell people that are telling you to wear a mask to fuck off. You don't have to be that way. But the point is that no one wore masks. I don't know how many people were there, but again, I've never been to an event this big, and I've been to a Kanye West concert. So my point in saying is, there is just no one giving a fuck. You had a couple of vendors, a couple of booths, it seemed like, that were the bigger names that maybe they were trying to play within the rules. And I'm talking actually like single digits. So like, no one wore a mask, dude. Nobody. So all these people are saying, I don't want to have to wear a mask. Well, if you would have showed up, you wouldn't have had to wear a mask, because guess what? No one wore a mask. It got to the point to where the last day I was there, they had people doing their job, standing outside of every door in every room saying, please, can you guys just try and put a mask on? Do me a favor. Like, they were like asking us, and it got to the point to where they absolutely had no idea how to respond to hundreds, possibly thousands of people walking through the door telling them, no, we're not putting masks on. So I think there's a couple of layers there that we could talk about if you really wanted to, in terms of like, that's amazing that you have 100 doorkeepers and hundreds of people saying no, and they absolutely knew, they had no idea what to do.
Yeah, you're definitely outnumbered in a situation like that, right? I mean, is part of the whole push to what is the silent majority really doing out there?
Yeah.
What are they really thinking? And if we weren't playing silly games, or there was some pushback, how much influence can you really have?
Yeah.
So in this case, the security of that particular hotel or that particular event is just like, okay, well, look, there's not a lot we can do about this right now, so we're going to go ahead and let this one go. Yeah. And then here's the thing, though. It's the same thing with taking away rights, or limiting people's access to things. You take away a little bit at a time, or you give up a little bit at a time, whichever side of that you're on. You keep doing that, you keep doing that, you keep doing that, and ultimately it's gone. So the next event that comes in there, whatever that happens to be, if they do the same, basically do they handle it the same way? Yeah. And then pretty soon
they just give up.
They just kind of give up, right? They kind of get tired. They get worn out.
And so I think that's interesting because it doesn't have to just be like that at a shooting event.
No.
What that tells me is that that's the power of the silent majority. If you guys, I don't know, like maybe it sounds ironic because we're talking about going to a show where they had a mask mandate, but that's also interesting that everybody showed up because they wanted to go to party, or like me, and they have to go for business. And guess what? No one wore a fucking mask. So like the power of that whole thing is very interesting. And I don't think people expected that when they were talking about it leading into the show. But yeah, man, it was great to see. Not because I'm some rebel or anything, but because I just, look, dude, I'm pretty sure I've had it, the flu or whatever you want to call it, twice. And I'm not worried because you see me take down fruits earlier and work out. So
you really got it together now. So here's a question though. So going back to these companies that were so vocal about it, didn't show up, and then had people that are, let's say again, represented by these companies at some level that didn't show up. Is the mask the real reason they didn't come?
Yeah,
dude. And if that's the case, that's weak.
Yeah.
That's weak
in
my mind. But number two, if it isn't the reason and they're just using that weak reason as a reason not to come, what's the real reason they didn't come?
Yeah, that's a great question. I legitimately have tried to wrap my head around not so much the people that represent this brand, more so the brand itself that garners the power. I'm trying to figure out what it was about them like not wanting to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I heard about this stuff happening too, and it crossed my mind, and I really sat back and kind of thought about it. And are they really that strong in their convictions? Hey, if you are, it's America. You do whatever the hell you want. Yeah. Don't come. If it's not, then why? What is it? And a couple of things crossed my mind. One of which would be, you're just doing so well. You're having such a banner year that you don't see any value in coming because you've made X amount of dollars, right? And you don't have to go to this show to represent because you're already set up, for this year and beyond. That's one reason. Another reason could be, well, we can't afford to go to the show because we haven't had a banner year. We've had one of the worst years ever, and we just can't afford the expense or the personnel out of the factory or out of the corporate office or whatever at this point. But then if that were the case, and I think we know that's not the case.
Yeah.
Right. I think we know that's not the case. If that's the case, then why didn't these other people that are represented by those companies go? Right. So you ask yourself that two question, you can draw your own conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy into the second one. Right. I just can't. I mean, we know where firearm sales has been in the last 18 months or so.
Yep.
But if I take a look at that first scenario, I would like to basically call out and say, these shows aren't just about you making money, right? They are about, people go to these shows to basically honor and meet the people behind the products and the services that they purchase that they feel strongly about. Yeah. So you showing up to these things is just as much about making the community stronger and showing appreciation for your customers.
100%, man.
Showing appreciation for your customers that you do give a shit and that it isn't all about money and that you want to see and hear their feedback and get their praises and or again, hear the constructive criticism that they might have about you so that you can continue to make your company better and support that community.